Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ira Tillman, and this is the Ira Tillman Show. We're here today in Los Angeles, beautiful downtown Los Angeles, maybe 5 minutes away from here. We're talking to actor, director, producer, and writer Aaron Braxton. He has a very interesting story. He's going to talk to us about today's Hollywood and the pitfalls and the gains that he's made. We're going to find out a lot about what he has to do in his coming adventures, and we're going to walk away with a very good idea about Hollywood and its processes.
It's the Ira Tillman Show. 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 Who's that man? Ira Tillman Show. Who's that man? Ira Tillman Show. Do the best you can. Ira Tillman Show. It's the Ira Tillman Show. Ira Tillman Show.
Okay, Ira Tillman here with actor, director, writer Aaron Braxton. Now, I first got wind of you through a friend of mine, Jackie Levy, giving a shout out to her. She took me to a live performance of yours, and it was A Raisin in the Sun. One of my favorite movies was Sidney Poitier, and you played the part that Sidney Poitier played in that. Um, Iconically, I want to know, other than your acting experience, what are some of your influences that directed you towards acting in the first place?
Ooh, that's a good question. What's some of my influences? I've always wanted to be an actor. Uh, Ever since I was a kid growing up in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and watching Zoom, which was filmed out of Boston, and always trying to get my mom to get me on that show, especially when I went to summer camp with one of the kids. It was on the show, and so knowing that it was filmed in Boston and telling my mom, "Hey, look, I can act, I can sing, like get me on that show. How do you do?" But my mom not really understanding the entertainment industry and not really understanding what she had as a kid. I mean, don't get me wrong. She bought me an organ that I burned up every year, and she'd have to buy me a new one.
Right.
So she was cultivating this artistic talent that I had, but she didn't really know how to go out into the world and make money at it.
Right.
So yeah, and then somehow I always dreamed of when I found out that the entertainment industry was out of California, and when my mom said, "Hey," she remarried and said, "Hey, we're moving to California." Something inside me said, "Hey, my dream is about to begin." And so, and then some of my early influences of watching, Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte in particular, just because the way that he embodied a character. And I'll tell you one thing. Now that as I'm thinking about it, this is my moment when I decided that I wanted to be an actor. My dad had brought me. He used to bring me to movies all the time, and so he brought me to Cooley High. And I don't know. I must have been about eight, 8 or 9, 10 maybe. So I'm watching Cooley High, and there's the scene where the Lawrence Hilton Jacobs character, where he dies under the bridge, and his friend, God, his that actor is escaping me right now, and I worked with that actor a few years ago in a reading, but he's running. He's running to because he's supposed to meet Lauren Hilton Jacobs' character. Supposed to meet him at the under the bridge. He's running, and he gets there, and the guy's dead, and his friend is dead, and he's crying. I'm in the movie theater bawling. I'm crying hysterically. Like, why they have to kill him? Why they have to kill him? To the point where my dad has to take me out the movie theater and bring me into the lobby. And it's like, it's a movie. It's not real. It's not real. And I couldn't wrap my head around what I was seeing and how I was feeling and what that movie made me feel inside. So it probably was about maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes before it clicked. This is, and I said, that's not like, it's not real. That those were just performers performing something on that screen that made me feel something. And I remember going, that's what I want to do.
Funny you should mention Cooley High because that's one of my motives for doing the things that I do. Preach, which is the one that
Yes.
is the one that you're talking about, who had the agonizing moment of discovering his friend had died. When he was talking to his school teacher, and his school teacher, Mr. Mason, and they were in the bathroom talking, and Mr. Mason said, "What do you want to do? You read books like they're candy."
Right.
And he told him, "I want to live forever."
I want to live forever.
I didn't know exactly what that meant at the
Right.
time. I didn't know.
Right,
I said,
right.
"Want to live forever." It took me years to understand that he meant in his writing that he wanted to live forever through his writing. I said, "Dang, you can live forever."
Yeah.
You know, they have Smithsonian, they have all these archives
Right.
of anything that's published and written. You
Right.
can live forever.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear in my head when I say, why am I writing?
Right.
Why am I producing these books? Why do I keep having these ideas? And it's because of Cooley High, and it's
Right.
because of that conversation he had with Mr. Mason in the bathroom that I said, I want to live forever. We're all here for just a smidgen of a time,
Right.
a minute.
Right.
And that's funny you mentioned Cooley High because that's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And I always cry at that movie. I cry at the graveyard scene. I don't cry when he gets killed. I cry when he starts to run away and as he's talking
Yeah.
at the gravesite.
There's that scene where the limo's driving away, and his friends are looking back, and they see Preach because he can't go to the funeral. He's too heartbroken to go to that funeral, and he steps out, and they see and his friend sees him.
Great
As a
piece of
it's
writing. Great piece.
Oh man, that is a film that I will watch just because of the sheer the sheer acting ability of those actors are just it's incredible, and that to me is a film that made me say I want to do that. I want to be able to inspire, because that's really what it did for me. Right. It inspired me to be an artist, and I wanted to do that and inspire that in others. And I think that that's one of the things in everything that I write, in any genre that I write it in, it's somehow always about inspiration. How do I inspire people? How do I inspire people through the talents and gifts that I have? And it came from Cooley High.
Okay, Aaron, we touched on Cooley High, my favorite subject of all time, but we led into inspiration, and you're very inspirational. You have a new book. It's called Going Solo.
Yeah.
And I read the synopsis, and you signed a copy to me. Thank you very much. Creating your own dynamic one-person show. Now, I have to admit and confess right now, I have a far-off dream of being a stand-up comedian, but I'm too scared to go to open mic night. I get too nervous, and I'm almost there, and I just got to sit down. You know, how do you get past that? And tell us what the book's about.
Well, let me tell you what inspired me to write the book in the first place. I've done a couple of one-man shows, one of which, Did You Do Your Homework, which is about the plight of urban education and what is the community's responsibility in educating kids from the urban community. And that play, which was supposed to be one weekend at the Beverly Hills Playhouse, ended up running 9 months and breaking all kinds of records of running at this prestigious facility, and won an NAACP award, an Image Award, won an International Gala Star from Romania. It did really well, and I'm really proud of that piece of work because it just inspired a lot of people. People still ask me, when are you going to perform that play again? It just, like I said, it broke all kinds of records and stuff. And so from that, I wrote another solo show called Belafonte Unauthorized for an actor. I didn't perform in that one, and another actor performed in that one. And wrote the Homeboys Cooking Show, wrote all these. And so after doing that, and seeing other solo artists that were teaching people how to write their own solo shows, and not putting anything past those people that are teaching, but just because you are successful at something doesn't necessarily mean you understand the theory behind how people learn and how people teach, and how to teach. So I decided that I needed to write a book. I needed to write a book about and teach people, especially layman people who have this burning desire to tell their story, but just didn't know how to start, how to begin, how do I even craft a one person show? Do I perform all the characters, or do I just do it as one solo character? What do I do? And so I said, hey, look, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to write a book. I have a degree from USC in teaching and curriculum writing, and so when I understand how people learn. And so I wanted to create a book that was accessible to people, that gave them an opportunity to put their stories down on paper, strategically and step by step, so you didn't just start writing all the way. That you started out by just writing out your idea, who are the characters, and getting to know who they are first, and then drafting your play. And then after you draft this thing, now that you have this piece of art, what do you do with it? Right. How do you market it? How do you produce it? How do you find money to produce it? And so when I decided to put all of that in this book, how do you do a crowdfunding? How do you find advertising for your program? All of those things are in this book. But the most important thing is it's about teaching people how to get their stories out. And even if you said, it's like I say in the book, even if you go, I don't know where to start, you can write that. Right. That could be the first sentence of your story. I don't know where to start. Right. And let that spark whatever else you need to write. So there's no excuses for anybody who has any type of burning desire, whether you're an actor or a singer, whether you're a secretary or a custodian. If you have a story out there that you're dying to tell, then this book is something that really gives you a tool on how to start.
Now, I have a lot of questions about this book.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I like to ask authors, writers, writer's block. Is that something that you ever had to deal with? And do you have any techniques for people in the book or not in the book that you can offer up as a tidbit?
Yeah. One of the things that I do is I outline first. I outline everything that I want to write.
Like goal setting.
Yeah, so I'll put, whether it's the typical outline that you got taught in school with the Roman numeral and the subject, and then point A, point B, point C. I like to do those type of outlines. But sometimes if my brain's just working too fast, then I just write sentences, or write a paragraph of what this particular chapter is going to be. And I like to do that because then that saves me from the writer's block, because then I know exactly how to contextually follow my structure because I have it all lined out on how to do it. That's a good way. But the most important thing is just to start.
Right.
That's the most important thing. And like I said, if you just go, I don't know where to start. If you just write that, just write that.
Yeah, start it down.
But I'm someone that, look, I can talk to you all day long. I was that kid that liked to, when you gave speeches in class, I was that kid that couldn't wait to do mine.
Right.
So, and I know that that's a little different than most people, because most people don't like to give speeches.
Shy
Most
away.
people, that was never me. You know, I'm an actor. So
writer's block, you haven't experienced it.
I haven't experienced, but the most important thing to writer's block is to outline. That's the most important thing, because that tells your brain the direction that you want it to go. So, you know, people that have writer's block, it's mostly because they don't have a direction. They don't know where they're going with their story. This is the thing, you can outline something, and as you write, if you don't like that structure, then you can always change it. But if you don't have a direction, then that's where you'll get the writer's block, because you'll be like, okay, I don't know where to go next. What am I going to write next? Well, if you outline, you'll know exactly where you're going to go, and you can always fill in stuff. I outlined that, you know, and then I decided, and then of course, once I outlined and once I started writing, I was like, oh, wait a minute, there's some other stuff that I need to put in that I didn't put in. Right. So you can always add some stuff or subtract some stuff, but you have to give your brain a direction.
One more question here. We're going solo. This is Aaron Braxton's new publication. It's going to teach you how to be successful in theatrical endeavors and writing endeavors. I'm going to ask you, when I finish reading this, I'm a total novice, let's say. Haven't written anything before, never performed. What am I ready to do once I finish this book?
Once you finish this book, you should have been able to have at least written a first draft, because there are exercises in here where you can write in this book. Exercises that brainstorming exercises that will flush your ideas out, that will flush your characters out and the plot out. And when you're finished, you should have written at least your first draft. Now, that's not going to say that's your only draft, because that's where, you know, we as writers, we get in trouble. We write the first draft and like, okay, now we're ready to perform. And it's not. You want to be able to go back, edit, revise, make sure it says exactly what you wanted to say. Give it maybe to someone that you really trust to read, so that it says what you wanted to say, because you only have one or two shots. Right. You know, and you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. When I wrote Did You Do Your Homework, that was 30 drafts. I wrote 30 drafts. That's one that it took me literally 2 years to write this piece. And you go, oh my God, 2 years. But it's only because that was my first one and I didn't really have a structure. So, but look, 30 drafts later, that play won a bunch of awards. So, hey.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you have a background teaching English.
Yeah.
Is that before the acting experience, or the acting experience came first and then you decided to incorporate it and studentology and teaching into your curriculum?
Well, you know what? This is the thing. My mom has always encouraged me to be an actor. And my mother, who's an educator, she was an administrator at Georgia Perimeter College before she retired. She's substitute teaching now, which I don't know why she do it, but she likes it. But she always said to me, look, you can go out into the world. You want to be an actor, go out and do it. Just get your college degree, right? So I went to school, got my college degree, went to San Diego State, got my bachelor's degree, went to USC, got a master's degree. And like I said, I got my master's in education and curriculum writing and teaching. And so when I came to LA, I experienced success pretty early. I got a couple leads in a couple films and thought, okay, cool. And then things dried up. And my mom said to me, well, why don't you teach while you're in LA and you're waiting for your next gig? And I thought, it says in my high school yearbook, I want to be an actor, writer, and teacher. It says that. So I said, okay. And I went down and signed up to be a substitute teacher with the Los Angeles Unified School District, and then started teaching full time. And I was still sneaking out on auditions, and thank by the grace of God, I had an office manager who understood, and a principal at that time, in Dr. Miller, who really understood that I'm a hard worker. I'm really hard worker, and so, like, when I'm at school, I was at school, I was staying late, I was developing lesson plans that were engaging for my students, but I was also an artist. And he understood that. So my office manager all I would have to say is, look, I got a dentist appointment, and she knew that meant I had an audition. Right. And so she used to like, okay, what class do you need me to cover for you? And so I was doing both for a very long time, and it got to the point where I got a gig that took me out of the country for a month, and so I had to resign. And then Dr. Miller retired, and then I came back into the district as a substitute teacher, and things just kind of got hectic. But I've always decided that teaching in some aspect is always going to be, it's in my blood too. Right. You know, my aunts were teachers, and uncles were teachers. Like I said, my mom's an educator, so it's always in my blood. So it's always something that I'm going to do, and I think that's why the stuff that I write, whether it be a screenplay about a preacher and his grandson, or Did You Do Your Homework, which is about the plight of urban education, or this book, Going Solo, or my book that's coming up, it's always going to be about inspiring people, because that's the part in me, the teacher part in me, that always surfaces. So no matter how much money I make, millions and millions of dollars, I will always go back and serve as far as teaching is concerned.
And I'm hoping that acting outlasts your teaching, because it's more glamorous and it's more money. I wanted to ask you about Jesse, and I'm going to do that after this break.